Welcome. Our guest today on FedChat is Melinda Caughill, Medicare expert and speaker. She's also co-founder of 65 Incorporated. Melinda's high energy and fun personality made this episode extremely entertaining. It's amazing how she can take a topic that most of us don't want to do any research on very enjoyable and educational. As a Medicare expert, she has presented to many professional organizations and consulted with some of the nation's foremost corporations. During our conversation, Melinda talks about her unique approach and how she's taken Medicare and made it sense to many people for the first time. We also discuss her unbiased services and that she does not sell any Medicare insurance. She also enlightens us on some tips on how federal employees can maximize FEHB and TRICARE when they're looking at Medicare. I hope you enjoy this episode as much as we did making it.
3, 2, 1, go!
Welcome to FedChat, the financial planning podcast for federal employees. And now, your host, Ed Smith.
Welcome today. Our guest is Melinda Caughill. She is the co-founder of 65 Incorporated and I-65 Medicare optimization software. She's also a Medicare expert and speaker. She's been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Consumer Reports, many other publications. She's also been a speaker for Edward Jones Advisory Group, Allstate, LPL events. So she's very much out there. She's also consulted with the foremost companies like PBS and McGill Publishing. You'll see today that Melinda is just a bundle of energy and such a great resource. She has so much knowledge on Medicare, and I'm just so happy that she's here. She's really all about helping people. And on her LinkedIn profile, it says that her personal motto is to help to be helped. All right. And it further says that if you can find a way to selflessly help people, I believe the world has a unique way of returning the favor. Plus, when it's all said and done, it just feels right to be able to help others when I can. So welcome, Melinda.
Wow, you really did do research on me.
Yeah. I try to make sure I know what I'm talking about. So
wow, that's good. Nice job.
So welcome to the podcast and the video today. So we're going to talk a little bit more about who you are and how you serve through your company, but also we'll talk about federal employees and how we work with that as well. As I mentioned before, you're co-founder of two companies. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about the executive search that you went through to get the co-founder for your company so you could find the perfect partner for you.
Actually, I think my partner did the executive creation in order to get a co-founder for her company. So my co-founder, that was funny. My co-founder is actually my mother. So my mother is a nationally recognized Medicare expert of many decades. And previously to this company, she actually started a company when I was growing up in the basement of our home, educating the nation's home healthcare agencies and long-term care facilities on how to comply with changing regulations. So I got to watch that as I was growing up. And you want to talk about female empowerment, right? Here, my mother is starting a business out of her home and growing it into a multi-million-dollar business. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I've got a cool mom, and she still works with me. In fact, I pointed over here because technically her office is right over there, and she could come in and photobomb anytime she wanted to. She might. You never put it past her. Anyway, so my mother's my co-founder, and when you grow up watching a mom in the Medicare space who is as powerful as she is, I like to think that it rubs off a bit. So after my mother exited her company in 2008, helping the home healthcare agencies and long-term care facilities, she vowed that she would start a company to help the consumers. Because in her work, she saw just countless numbers of people making life-altering, and not in a good way, Medicare mistakes. And she wanted to figure out, how do we help people stop that? So 2012, we co-founded a company called 65 Incorporated. 65 Incorporated does one-on-one Medicare enrollment consultations on a fee-for-service basis. Pretty decent chunk of our clients, 15% of our clients are FEHB clients trying to make the transition into Medicare. So there's a lot of TRICARE, there's a lot of VA that we service. So dispelling the myths is probably one of the most important things we do, in addition to getting to know clients and what they need and trying to match that with whatever Medicare healthcare options they have in retirement. So there you go. Medicare is kind of a family tradition.
Definitely a lot of knowledge in your family, and both of you, while you look at your mom as the expert, I mean, I've had so many conversations with you, and the knowledge that you have is just incredible. And I really appreciate the guidance that you give to both myself and the people that are out there looking at this stuff. So you came from a marketing background and worked
Mhm.
on things like orchestras, art museums, and Harley Davidson, which fits right along with what you're doing today. So how would you say that works for you, and you've been able to bridge the years that you've been building marketing to expand and what you've been able to do and how you can help people today?
Actually, that's a pretty easy answer. My mother will tell you she can't sell her way out of a paper bag. So in order for her to grow a company that helps the consumers avoid making Medicare mistakes, you can't have a business without being able to market it and sell it. So I
Yeah.
came in as the marketing and the salesperson. So did all the advertising and the marketing, did the messaging, the websites, the videos, so I did the logo. So there was a lot of marketing and advertising skills that came to bear. But now, as I work with financial advisors a lot, a huge portion of my business is helping them to understand why helping clients with Medicare is actually a huge marketing push. It helps them to differentiate themselves, it helps them to grow their business in really unique, powerful ways. So,
Okay.
believe it or not, marketing for Harley Davidson is coming to bear today. So,
Oh,
there you
it all
go.
helps. It all helps in those different areas that you learn from different things. Um,
Absolutely.
and I from the time I've spent with you, I could just see so much passion you have for what you do, which is great. And you enjoy what you do. And, growing up, and you talk about, Medicare was talked at your dining room table when you're eating dinner and stuff like that. But was there any one activity or a why that you have of, besides just it's been bred into you for so long, just something that's saying, this is what pushes me to be better, or this is the why that I want to help people, like you have in your personal motto?
So each and every time I consult with clients or I work with financial advisors, I I tell financial advisors, hey, if you want to feel good about yourself, if you're pretty down and feeling like your life is meaningless or whatever,
Yeah.
you're having just a really bad day, do something with a client related to Medicare. It,
Yeah.
the power of the feedback is incredible. I get this all the time. Oh my gosh, Melinda, you have no idea how great this is. I just, oh, like they almost don't have words. So there's so much confusion and myths and misunderstandings and potential to make really horrible mistakes that helping people in a way that I'm not selling insurance. We don't sell insurance. That is not what we do. It's something that's not being done before. So in many ways, we're breaking the model that currently exists in the Medicare environment. Because today, if you ask people, how are you going to solve the Medicare conundrum? They'll tell you, well, I'll go talk to my friends, right? But their Medicare friends don't really know what's what either. So, short of that, and then maybe researching them, all the stuff themselves, by the way, the key self-service, self-research guide to Medicare is called Medicare and You. It's 127 pages. So people don't want to do that. So then where else do they turn? Really, the only other option, if it's not the government resources, is insurance agents. And we know how awesome the Joe Namath commercials are and how informative they are. So, what do you do? What do you do? We're breaking that. We're breaking that. Sort of like it used to be you could drive yourself, rent a car and drive yourself, or you could take a cab. But neither were really great options. Then came Uber, right?
Yeah.
Broke the model. We're trying to break the model. We're trying to do and deliver what people actually want, which is Medicare guidance first from sources that do not sell Medicare insurance. That's why financial advisors is so, they're so powerful in providing Medicare guidance, because you're already doing retirement planning. You're helping with Social Security timing. You're making sure they have enough money for retirement, how they're going to disperse that income. So why not talk about Medicare? It
Right.
fits right into the retirement landscape. But they don't. So I keep trying. I keep trying. I keep trying.
So some of us are getting it. I remember the first
Oh,
meeting.
you are.
Yeah.
You're amazing.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I remember the first meeting that I had with you, and it was probably that, oh my gosh, there's so much here. There is so much that I don't know. How could I possibly give somebody guidance with the lack of information that I have? And so I don't give guidance on that. I mean, it's very superficial, but it's, hey, we need to get you in to talk to the team and making sure they're doing a good job. Besides the company, and again, we mentioned this as we're getting ready for the starting today. What else drives you? And you mentioned dogs and loving to pet dogs and seeing different dogs. But what else drives you outside of the company and really pushes you on a personal level?
My son.
Oh, wow.
My son.
Why is that?
15-year-old son is my sun, my moon, my gravity, my stars. He was diagnosed autistic when he was 18 months old. I mean, we couldn't get him through the doors of Target without him completely melting down, and I just had no clue why. I mean, to him, it was, don't do that. It's life or death, me going into Target. We knew something was wrong. But if you were to meet my son today, you would never know. So anyways, so much of what I do in some way, shape, or form is driven by him and helping guide him, or just, I don't know. That's
Wow.
My son is just powerful for me.
Yeah. Wow. That's just amazing. Thank you for sharing. That was very very touching. And I'm glad that you have that motivation and that something that drives you and keeps you grounded in, but also makes you going forward on all those different things. So that's great.
He's a great kid. Yeah. I'm very lucky.
It sounds it.
Mm-hmm.
So, Melinda, how is 65 Incorporated changing lives of people? I mean, you mentioned it a little bit before about not being an insurance company, but what's really different about 65 Incorporated and how's it changing people's lives?
Oh, boy. Do you want me to read like a whole bunch of testimonials?
No, people can go to the website. No, people can go to the website for that, and we'll actually have links in the show notes to your website and other resources for people to be able to check you out. But they can look at the testimonies yourself. But in your own words, what would you say that is?
Sure. So almost on a daily occurrence for me is for clients to say this. And I'm not kidding. It's like somebody literally wrote it down for them to say, because they pretty much all say it exactly the same way. They will say to me, these are my clients, I am a fill in the blank profession smart person. I am a doctor. I am a neurosurgeon. I am a rocket scientist. And Medicare does not make sense to me. How does the average person do it? I hear that day in, day out. It doesn't matter if a person is a rocket scientist or not. Medicare defies common sense. It's only natural for people to be able to take something as complex as Medicare and try to boil it down into snippets that you can say, like, everybody should do this, everybody should do that. Unfortunately, when it comes to Medicare, and this is my new tagline, it stinks as a tagline, it's too long, but I've got to say it. When it comes to Medicare, the only thing that is true for everyone is that nothing is true for everyone. That's Medicare, and that's the huge problem. So people try to say, as soon as you turn 65, you have to enroll in Medicare. As soon as you turn 65, you have to get Part A. As soon as whatever. It's all wrong, because it may be true for up to, say, 98% of people, but there are 2% of people that will not apply to and could potentially destroy their future access to healthcare. Medicare mistakes are not little things that you just send in a form and bada bing, bada boom, they're fixed. That's not how Medicare mistakes work. People just don't realize Medicare mistakes can literally cost you thousands of dollars for the rest of your life and even keep you from getting needed healthcare services. We have horror stories that would scare the hoo-ha out of you. And, people with stage 4 cancer diagnoses who find out that essentially they have no health insurance. And, oh, by the way, you won't be able to get any sort of coverage for at least a year. What? I mean, these are game-changing, life-altering mistakes that happen day in, day out for people in Medicare. So when you ask me, how do I help people? Well, hopefully they're never going to have any real sense of how I am truly helping them, because my job is to help them steer clear of those mistakes. So they never see the true impact of what might have happened, but they do have a sense of, oh, I'm going to make the right decisions and I know it.
Right.
So that's my day in, day out.
Yeah. It's something that you just mentioned there, about how complex it is and engineers not being able to figure it out. I was in this business for almost 2 decades before I came across your website and found you guys and found out, where it was. And I watched some videos, and you're the designer of the revolutionary theory of 3 parts, 2 paths, which is an incredible way. It's the first time I was ever able to somewhat grasp Medicare, not fully grasp it, but somewhat grasp it. And there will be links so you can actually watch the whole series on learning a little bit more about the 3 parts, 2 paths. So Melinda doesn't have to go into it all today because it's a very in-depth process, but extremely educational. Please take a look at it. It's just a brilliant way to be able to simplify it and actually put it in the reality of what that is. So can you talk a little bit more about, without going into great detail,
Yeah,
about what
the
that
3
is,
parts.
summarize that a little bit? Yeah.
Sure. So, what everybody hears all the time from Medicare or commercials or wherever they get it from, Medicare has 4 parts: A, B, C, and D. That's what everybody hears. And in our experience, that is where all the confusion begins. Because technically, C is not a part, it is a way to get the 3 other parts. So C is just a repackaging of Part A, hospital insurance, Part B, medical insurance, and Part D, prescription drug coverage. C is just a different way to get those 3 parts. So let's just call it what it is. Medicare has 3 basic parts and then 2 distinct ways to get the 3 basic parts. So the 2 ways are either original Medicare with a Medicare supplement or a Medicare Advantage plan. Either way, you're going to get Part A, Part B, and Part D, the 3 basic parts. But the way these 2 paths work are vastly different, and you need to think of them as paths, because later in your future, you may not be able to jump from one path to another. One path may go all the way to Florida, and the other path goes all the way to California. Like, you can't, I mean, it's a metaphor, right?
Right.
It's a way of speaking. They don't actually go anywhere. They're metaphorical. But but that's what I mean. Like, there's no way to go from one path to jump all the way to a path that's miles and miles and miles away. So you really need to be conscious of what path you choose in order to get the 3 basic parts.
Yeah, that's really, and again, people, that's a very quick summary of it. Please watch the videos because they're very beneficial. They're both either on your website or on our YouTube channel. You can watch these things. It really explains it a little bit, a greater detail and a lot better way than the quick summary that's there, but it's an amazing way to understand it. And I think that I know that you guys are doing some things that are just incredible. You mentioned this earlier, and I think you breezed by it a little bit too quickly, that most people of where they get the information is from insurance agents. And
Mm-hmm.
your company doesn't have any sales or product there. It's obviously there's sales of your product, but not of Medicare products. And
Right.
so talk a little bit more about how you're different than a lot of the industry and why people should be looking at you versus a variation of just going out and, like you said, Joe Namath or JJ or somebody like that, calling up those companies and talking about that.
Okay, now this is for any insurance agents watching this. I hope you understand what I mean. You've met people like this. So, in the Medicare insurance industry, there are what I call churn and burn people. The more Medicare insurance applications they make, the more they sell. Once they sell that Medicare insurance policy, they have no incentive really to stick around and help you with it the years go by. They don't get paid any more to help you. There's no incentive to stick around. So when I talk about insurance agents, in many cases, they're trying to make a sale as fast as possible and move on to the next sale. The easiest way in Medicare today to make a sale is to tell people the Joe Namath talking points. $0 in monthly premiums, free dental coverage, free gym membership, get all the benefits coming to you, plus money back on your Social Security check each month. Call the number on your screen. Mm-hmm.
You've seen that a few times. You've seen that.
Oh, God. So everything that Joe said is technically true, but everything he's not telling you is the parts that are really, 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 really important. Okay. $0 in monthly premiums. Those plans are not free. The way he says it makes people think, I'm not paying anything. Yeah, that's not how that works. These are not free plans. If the insurance commercials could say free Medicare coverage, you bet your booty they would say free Medicare coverage, but they can't. Legally, they have to say $0 in monthly premiums. A lot more words. So don't translate that to being free in your head. The other things they don't talk about too is the fact that when you choose a Medicare Advantage path, you may not be able to change to original Medicare with a supplement later in life. That is a huge myth, and they keep it in the dark because that might make you look more carefully at whether or not you buy a Medicare Advantage plan before you buy a Medicare Advantage plan. Yes, this decision, this purchase you're making can become permanent, right? Like, I don't want to talk about that. That makes my job harder. Can we just go with the parts that make it very easy for me to make a sale and move on? And oh, by the way, insurance agents typically make 20 to 30% more selling a Medicare Advantage plan than they do Medicare supplements.
Wow. I never heard that statistic. That's amazing.
Yeah. So they're incentivized to sell Medicare Advantage. It's easier to sell when you just stick to the talking points. Right. But what's happening in this country now, and you can go look at the Office of the Inspector General or the Government Accountability Office, Accounting Office. There are literally studies there about what is happening to people as they age on a Medicare Advantage plan. People are facing incredible amounts of prior authorization, meaning they can't get the health services that their doctor says they need because the insurance company is saying no. That's a big deal when you need healthcare services. Another study shows that the number of people disenrolling from Medicare Advantage plans in what turns out to be the last year of their life is disproportionately high compared to any other group disenrolling from Medicare Advantage. They would rather pay 20% of every bill on original Medicare without a supplement than remain on a Medicare Advantage plan. 20% with no spending limit. Does that tell you anything about what it means to be on a Medicare Advantage plan when you need a heck of a lot more care? These are the things that aren't being told. And these are the things that people need to know about because they are making decisions not just for today, but potentially 20, 30 years in the distance.
Right.
People need to know this stuff. Yeah. So we don't sell it. And people feel really confident that when I make a recommendation, the only reason I'm making the recommendation is because I truly believe that is the plan that's best for you. And I will tell you why.
Love it. That's just great. And just to clarify, we don't sell insurance either. I mean,
no, you don't.
We are,
That's why I'm on your podcast,
right?
Ed.
Because it's just something that's different, and your levels of education and what you provide are just phenomenal on so many different levels. I mean, you have a lot of information that's on your website that's free that you can go get some guides and things like that, and then you step up to the next level with roadmaps and different ways. And they're so thorough. I mean, there's links. You go to this link and you do this, fill out this section, do this. I mean, so detailed, and it's just so beneficial. But the most beneficial that I see when I work with clients is the consultations, because the information is great and it's a step-by-step guidance. It's answering those questions and some of those things that are very specific. And we were on one, I think it was last week or the week before, with a client, and you were talking about the difference when you get admitted into a hospital or when you go to a hospital. And can you just briefly tell it? Because I think that was just one jewel of information I just thought was incredible. And I think that people don't see this level of expertise and why this is so important to not only when you're getting a plan, but when you're getting care. Can you just really quickly talk about that?
Yes, and that's one of our big tenets is choosing your Medicare type of coverage today, your path, is about what kind of healthcare experience you want in the future. It's critical. You don't just look at the dollar signs. Dollar signs are important, but if you look at just dollar signs without anticipating how do you want to get care, are you flexible, are you not flexible, these are key things. So what you're talking about specifically is the fact that Medicare Part A is hospital insurance. This part of Medicare is premium free for those who have worked and paid taxes or have a spouse who has for at least 10 years. This part of Medicare kicks in to help pay the bills when you are admitted into a hospital. But here's the trick. You can feel like you're admitted into the hospital. You'll be in a hospital room, in a hospital bed. There'll be doctors and nurses walking in and out. It will taste like a hospital room when you get food. But you could be there under something called observation status. So technically, when you are in a hospital room under observation status, you're not admitted into the hospital. And as a result, you're in Medicare payee limbo. What does that mean? It means that because you are not admitted, Medicare is not going to cover that. That's not a hospital admission. You're just there being observed. If you need to be discharged into a skilled nursing facility, let's say because you fell down and broke a hip, right? And you're there under observation status for some reason, and now you need to be admitted into a rehab facility. Medicare is not going to cover that skilled nursing facility stay because you never had what is called a qualifying event, which is being admitted into the hospital. Observation status doesn't qualify as a qualifying event. Right. To be redundant. So always ask. If you are the loved one, it is your job to ask, is my significant other, my loved one, my dad, my mom, admitted into the hospital? If they are there under observation status, you do what you need to do to get your loved one admitted.
Yeah.
Huge.
And I think this really goes back to your personal motto of helping others. And most people don't talk about these things. They go for the sale or they go for the product and they move on. When you're really trying to help people, you want to make sure that if they need it or when they need it, that they're financially and however the benefits can be brought to the family are really there. So they don't get stuck in a situation of either paying more money or just the emotional burdens that people have as well. So
and that's the thing, emotional burdens are huge, right? Like, so to know that you're not just taking care of yourself appropriately and getting the care that you need, but that your family members, the burden on them will be lessened. As a result, by the way, I've got a couple to share, just a couple more tips that like nobody knows. 99% of the population do not know. Under Medicare, powers of attorney are not enough. So if you have a loved one, and like during COVID, for example, they were in a hospital and you need to make a call to Medicare or something to, how do I make a payment since they're in the hospital? You will not be able to talk to Medicare for that loved one using powers of attorney. Nope. You have to be a designated authorized representative. You have to fill out a form specifically for Medicare. The same is true for Social Security. You have to be a Social Security designated representative payee. All this mumbo jumbo. 2 different forms. So if you want to talk to the government entities about your parents, about your spouse, fill out these forms today. Just get it done. It's not hard to do, but you need to do it. Versus trying to do it when you're in neck deep in something. Do it now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and there's a lot of financial institutions following that same policy that they will not honor power of attorneys, which is horrible because people think that they're covered and they aren't. And so there's a lot of that going around in the world. And unfortunately, we won't be able to fix that today, but we'll work on it. So we'll see what we can be able to do.
person by person, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you guys just came out with a really good enhancement to some of the software that you do over the last couple of months. It was a great improvement. I mean, it was good before, but it's even better. And you have some other tools that are available for advisors. It really helps us look at things like IRMAA and other factors there. Where do you see the future of the companies going and what you're going to be able to do? Just for the company itself, not specific to federal employees.
It's hard. It's hard, Ed. I'll be really honest with you. When you're doing something that has never been done before, it's hard. People don't know where to put you. There's no category set for you. And having people create a category is really hard because there's no employee that's set to deal with this, or there's no what category in my accounting software does this fall under? Doing something that's never been done before, it's not for the faint of heart. It's really hard. So for us, we're going to keep going. We're going to keep going. We're good little soldiers. We're just going to keep trying, and hopefully continue to meet people like you, Ed, who get what we're trying to do and see the difference. So I don't know. Yeah. Tell your friends if it makes a difference to you and you see a difference. Tell people that it exists. That's so powerful because people only know that self-study and insurance agents exist. That's all they know.
Right.
When they hear that there's something else, it's huge.
Yeah. And you mentioned the miscellaneous categories and the recent T3 study that was done on technology software that advisors use. You were thrown in the miscellaneous group because they didn't know where to put you guys. I mean, you're carving such a path, which is a great study. We use it internally. It's not something that the general public looks at, but it's something that we look at to see, who's doing a great job and who does the clients like or the advisors like on that side. And you guys are at the top of the list, I think, or one or two on that list on the miscellaneous, but you're being judged against different things that don't even do anything you do. So it's tough to judge you.
Things against like college planning or like, I don't even know, like new file folders. I'm lumped in there with a whole bunch of stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with Medicare, but I get it, right? We're the only ones. And so we're miscellaneous. So yeah, anyway. Yeah. There you go.
That's good. So when you're looking at the company, I see so much passion with you. Do you have any passion projects like charities or things like that you guys like to work with or are important to the company as a general or just you in general?
So me in general, in my free time, I teach drawing and painting to kids through an organization called 4-H. So I teach kids who are as young as third grade all the way through high school. And it is a passion project. Yeah. Watching these kids do something they've never done before and as a result light up like, oh my gosh, I can do this. I don't think I'm really teaching drawing and painting at the end of the day. I'm actually teaching self-confidence, but through really cool paintings and pictures and things. So it's fun. And we did a lot of that virtually during COVID in order to give kids another outlet because kids suffered. Oh, do they suffer? So.
Oh. Yeah, I always love hearing what drives people on that, more of the charitable type of stuff. So that's great. Again, if I was drawing, it would not be building up my self-confidence. I am a horrible drawer. So
I don't know. That sounds like a challenge to me.
I will take that challenge, Melinda. Sometime we can do a drawing class.
Challenge to me.
Sounds good.
You haven't had me as a teacher.
That is true. Well, I have, but just not with drawing. So
right, with Medicare, right?
Exactly. Cool.
I like to think I could. So you wouldn't be Picasso or anything, but maybe you could feel good about what you created, and that's the point.
We'll try that at some point. We'll have to have a group class. Maybe one of our wind down Wednesdays, we'll have you come there and we'll teach as we're drinking. That sounds good.
As long as there are all your dogs around too.
We'll just one. Yeah, we'll make sure everybody's other dogs are there. So we're good.
Okay.
Okay, so Melinda, your work isn't specific to federal employees. As you mentioned before, how much percentage are on FEHB?
10, 15.
Okay. All right. So, but
I think it's representative of the national population, right? Like 10% federal employees.
So when you're looking at, what you see on not just with the non-federal employees, but with the federal employees, because you've done a great job with the clients that we work with. You've talked about some really good things with FEHB and TRICARE we'll get to in a second. But with FEHB, what are you seeing that people should be really looking at when they're trying to decide, FEHB, Medicare, or a combination of both? Because I think that's probably some of the biggest decisions I see. Oh, I'm only going to do this. And they don't look at some of these things. So where would you say that a federal employee should be looking at when they're trying to make that major decision?
So there are a couple components. Number one, your health, not just today, but into the future. And the good news is in FEHB, you can change it. It will adjust your finances a bit, but healthcare. How much healthcare do you think you need? Will you need like extra home healthcare services or hospitalization or prosthetics? Ooh, that's a fun one to put on my tongue. Prosthesis. Anyway, if you'll need alternate limbs. There we go. I can say that. If you need those kind of services, you may want to look at adding Medicare Part B. So what makes FEHB so unique and really truly, federal employees are the only people in the country who can have Medicare, get Social Security benefits, and never get Medicare Part B, which is the premium side of Medicare. So you need to remember you're special. So it's you get benefits that other people wish they could have. So don't know, you've got something really good going on. All right. So the making the decision about Part B or not, taking a look at your health. Also, take a look at your finances, because if you are considered a higher income person, basically you take two line items of your tax return: adjusted gross income added to tax exempt interest. So those two lines together. If you're a single filer, more than $91,000 a year. If you're married filing jointly, more than $182,000 a year. If you're subject to IRMAA, Part B has an IRMAA adjustment that can be all the way up to $400 and some dollars. If you're getting Part D, you really shouldn't ever get Part D with an FEHB because drug coverage is included with the FEHB plans, but there is a Part D IRMAA as well. But that Part B IRMAA can add thousands and thousands of dollars to your Medicare premiums each year. You don't have to get Part B. So you really need to weigh the benefits and extra care, plus some FEHB plans will waive any copays or premiums if you enroll in Part B. So the need for extra care and waiving copays and premiums, but paying Part B and potentially Part B IRMAA, or not taking Part B, avoiding IRMAA premiums, and then avoiding, though, the extra benefits of having Medicare and the ability to travel potentially outside of an FEHB's network. So it really depends on your unique situation. Yes, you can change your mind later in life, but if you change your mind later in life, then you will experience Part B late enrollment penalties. Part B late enrollment penalties are not like parking tickets where you pay the penalty once and you're done. No, they follow you each month for the rest of your life. So just know that, there's pros and cons on both sides, and it really depends on your unique situation. The only thing that is true in Medicare for everybody is that nothing is true in Medicare for everybody.
Right. Definitely. And we come across that IRMAA situation where the income all the time, because federal employees, especially a couple that are both federal employees, they're two pensions, two Social Security checks, again, depending on the pension system you're on. And while you might not be in the earlier years, once you hit that required minimum distributions and you start taking money out of your TSP, a massive amount of income is being added there. And that at that point, you're going to see those Medicare costs skyrocket and can be very dangerous. So we try to do that as early as possible, not waiting till 65 or not waiting till we're looking at Medicare, looking at as soon as you retire or even earlier. So yeah, that's a great point that I think that a lot of federal employees they don't think they'll be seeing because they don't see it right away, but it could really affect them into their 70s. And then again, for the rest of their life, because they're just stuck with it at that point. So,
Right. And
really,
then, unfortunately, all of our crystal balls are broken.
right.
So none of us know. And, will you need a prosthetic, yes, limb in the future? I don't know. But, just knowing those things, you know what you're saying no to so that it's not a surprise. Medicare surprises are always nasty. Know what you're saying no to so at least you know what could potentially be ahead.
Right. And I just want to make a point here that, a lot of people that don't specialize with federal employees, they don't have knowledge on that. But actually with 65 Incorporated and the software that you use, that you've designed, you actually have carve out specifically for FEHB, which is great. That you have your own FEHB calculators, which is phenomenal. So there's a lot of tools that actually are very specific to federal employees, even though you don't specialize with federal employees, which is another reason why we like using you, because you actually understand what we're talking about and not, oh, that's only 10% of it. We're not going to deal with those people just because we're going to deal with the 90%. So you actually have special tools for federal employees, and you can actually get them through us and through other resources.
So Ed,
yeah,
I have to share this with you. This happened. I was wondering if this would ever happen. And it happened probably about a month and a half ago. I was in a consultation with a client and I started realizing, oh my gosh, this is the mythological client. I was wondering if they'd ever happen. I went and got my mom. Luckily, she wasn't in a consultation. So she came into my consultation. Here's what happened. The client is sitting there and they're telling me, okay, so we need to decide what type of coverage we want. So, of course, they have original Medicare with a supplement or Medicare Advantage as type options because everybody has those. Then they were bringing up the fact that they could do the retiree program from FedEx. They're also they're military, so they have TRICARE. And by the way, they are transitioning to the FAA, so they also have FEHB benefits available to them. And I was like, oh my gosh, it happened. Because what I like to tell people is there's always at least two paths. Everybody stands at least a fork in the road. But when you have FEHB, you have another path to choose from. And there are decisions related to that. If you have retiree coverage, that's a different path. If you have TRICARE or VA, a different path. This lady literally had 5 paths to choose from. So I will tell you, what she wound up choosing was FEHB because she was in the highest IRMAA bracket that she could possibly be in. And she forego TRICARE because you can't have TRICARE and FEHB and retiree coverage, so you have to pick. Right. She chose FEHB. And that tells you where FEHB is in terms of everything else. So people out there are lucky pants.
They are. And that brings up another great point when you're looking with federal employees, because a lot of them are former military. And when we look at TRICARE, TRICARE, from what I've seen and what, I've learned about it, has some of the best program for copays and different things that the out-of-pocket costs long-term. But I think that brings up a great point. So can you be a little bit more specific about why in a high-income earner, that situation would be bad for the TRICARE, even though it has some of the best out-of-pocket costs long-term? So specifically on that.
So this woman was the highest bracket of IRMAA, and that's about $470 a month, added to Part B, which is $170.10 a month. So you take those two and you add them together, you're looking at $600 and some dollars. Math is not my friend. Your friend, not mine. But it's $600 and some dollars per month.
Right.
That's outside of everything else. $610 a month for however long. She would be subject to those IRMAA premiums and the Part B premium if she got TRICARE, because in TRICARE, you have to get Part B. In order to be eligible for TRICARE, you have to get Part A and Part B. FEHB, you have to get Part A if you're taking Social Security benefits, but you don't ever have to do anything with Part B. And as a result, IRMAA doesn't happen when you don't have Part B.
Right. And so just so many calculations and variations of what to be able to do. And I think some of your new software actually helps us address that when we're looking at IRMAA, long-term needs, and also long-term care type of costs as well. So it affects a lot of different factors of what we're doing on there. So that's very helpful for us.
By the way, Medicare doesn't cover long-term care, people.
Yes.
1 out of every 2 people believe that. And no, it's a horrible long-term care plan. It is a way to guarantee your long-term care coverage will not be covered.
Right.
Your long-term care needs.
Like you said earlier, Medicare and You, while it is a very thorough book, there's also a lot that's not in there as well because there's so many details. But with
FEHB.
Right. But another thing you have to look at it, there's so many people get their information from other people and their information is generally wrong. I so many times have I heard bad information, and not just on Medicare, but on so many different factors. It's something that you really, if you want to protect yourself, please get good guidance on what you want and unbiased. I mean, I'm unbiased, you're unbiased. That's what I love. What I do is that I'm not trying to sell anything as far as a product or get somebody in a specific area. So please get that conflict-free advice. That's very helpful. So when I'm looking at the advisors, what can we at Valor Wealth Partners or other advisors that are out there, what can we do to be better at what we're doing? And when we're talking about Medicare, what are the things that we can be helping?
I would love it if you just start sooner. And Ed, I'm not particularly talking to you. You asked financial advisors in general. Start sooner, because Medicare, I like to say, is the elephant in the retirement planning room. Like, we're just going to pretend it's not there. Like, we're not going to talk about that because I don't feel comfortable talking about it. So we're going to avoid the topic of healthcare and retirement altogether. That leaves just this huge black hole. Because you're not talking about it does not mean clients are not concerned about it. In fact, if anything, the lack of talking about it makes that concern even worse. Like, oh my gosh, nobody's going to talk about this. So what aren't they telling me? And then they have to go fill in the blanks themselves. And they fill in the blanks with things like Bernie Sanders' proposals to Congress, Medicare for all, right? Medicare for all and Bernie Sanders proposals. Nothing against Bernie Sanders here or anything. I think his proposals have merit, but he uses the term Medicare for all. In his proposals, the tenets are free, single payer, and no pre-existing medical conditions. None of those things are Medicare as it exists today. So when you fill in the blanks with the information that's out there in general, you can't help but believe a whole bunch of myths. And myths translate into very costly, permanent Medicare mistakes. So don't listen to Joe Namath. Don't listen to Bernie Sanders. Get the real scoop on Medicare. And also, don't get Medicare guidance from healthy friends. When you ask your friends, what type of health insurance do you have and do you like it? Make sure they're not healthy, because healthy people have no clue how their health insurance works. They could have no health insurance and say it works great.
Right.
Like, ask somebody who actually has experience using it. And you laugh, but people do it all the time.
I do it. I don't go to the doctor too often. And it's that thing. It's easy to say, well, I don't need it. But the people and the horror stories you hear from the people that have needed insurance, and I'm not just talking about Medicare, I'm just talking about health insurance in general or anything, and it's not there, or the service isn't there, or just the confusion. It's not how I couldn't help somebody on that because I just don't know. I've never had to deal with that before. So,
and we never know what's going to happen to us in the future.
Yeah.
So, plan for the worst and then be happy if the worst doesn't happen.
Right.
Knowing that you're prepared.
Yeah. So as one final question, what do you think is the future of serving federal employees, or in relation to how you work, or just people in general, about what you see is going on?
So I mentioned to you planning ahead, right? Starting conversations earlier about healthcare and retirement and what that means, what that looks like, what that costs. That said, do not try to predict the future, anything coming out of Congress. There's Bernie Sanders is trying to put through Medicare for all. If that manages to get through Congress, well, then it still has to go into the Health and Human Services Administration, where there's a whole bunch of specific rules that are then put into place. What goes in, we have no idea what will actually come out in terms of rules, practical application. So don't make any sort of decisions today based on what might be in the future. You can speculate on it for entertainment purposes, but use what is actually in progress, what is written down and being used today as your guide point. And doing that, whether Medicare for All, FEHB, the program as it is today, use that as a template. And do that for your own health as well. You know, we can plan for the worst, but if you're picking a drug plan, you're picking a health plan, know what doctors you see today and base it on that. Don't try to guess what doctors you may need in the future and try to pick a plan based on that. That's just silly. It's just
Right.
adjust as you move forward, but make sure that you got an idea of your worst case scenario and know how that might function and put things in place to help supplement in that case. So if that makes any sense.
It does. Thank you so much for your insight. I mean, that's very helpful to be able to look at a lot of different factors. Melinda, thank you for your time today. We really appreciate your guidance, your humor, the energy that you brought today. A lot more exciting than I am, so I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great one, Ed.
You too.